If we don't provide Ukraine the means of self-defense and more Patriots and Patriot interceptors, that's going to make Russian attacks more effective. You're going to have increased Ukrainian casualties, and it's going to undermine President Trump's leverage as he tries to bring Vladimir Putin to the negotiating table in good faith, something I'm not holding my breath for, especially if we deprive Ukraine of the means of self-defense.
Some are calling the war in Ukraine World War I with drones. We're watching trench lines and high-tech drone strikes unfold in real time, and it's reshaping the battlefield and global strategy in ways we've never seen before. Tonight, we're joined by someone who's been closely tracking the evolution of this conflict and its implications for the United States. Brad Bowman is Senior Director of the Center on Military and Political Power at the Foundation for Defensive Democracies. He's also a former Black Hawk pilot and National Security Advisor in the U.S. Senate, and he joins us now. Brad, great to have you back with us. Hey, drone warfare in this Russia-Ukraine conflict, it seems really to be changing the game, and you've written about this, Brad. Is this conflict and what we're seeing there with unmanned aerial vehicles the new reality, the new normal when it comes to warfare and conflict globally?
Thanks for the opportunity to join you, and thanks for the really important question, right? Because it's so important that we understand what's happening on the battlefield in Ukraine so that we can make sure our forces are prepared for what comes next in defending our country. And to answer your question directly, yes, this is a glimpse of the kind of warfare our troops are going to confront in the future. And the more we learn, the more successful our troops will be in accomplishing their missions and returning home to their families. You know, drones come in different forms with different purposes, but what they're essentially doing is they're providing each combatant, each force, increased intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance to be able to see the battlefield and increase strike capabilities. And that's complementing other assets like missiles and artillery and mortars, and making them more deadly. It's making cover and concealment more difficult. It's making it more difficult to mass forces and surprise your opponent because they see what you're doing. They can hit you before you even start. And so it's making all of this more complex. And as the Ukrainians defend their homes against Putin's unprovoked invasion, we need to help them defend themselves because it's in our interest, but we also need to learn as much as possible to ensure our troops are prepared as well.
Yeah, it's almost like a test lab of sorts, this Russia-Ukraine war. I hate to use that terminology, but in terms of the drone factor, for sure. Hey, President Trump is going to now send more Patriot missile batteries to Ukraine. Is that a major game changer in your view, Brad?
For too long, we took things for granted as we were fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan in terms of threats from the air. Well, as we're confronting China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea working together more than ever, and we have to be able to defend ourselves. And we saw the Iranian attack, for example, in El Udeid Air Base, the largest U.S. military air base in the Middle East. And that was, according to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the largest expenditure of Patriot interceptors we've seen in the system's history. And so undoubtedly, we do not have enough. Undoubtedly, we need to produce more. But what's also true is that if we don't provide Ukraine the means of self-defense and more Patriots and Patriot interceptors, that's going to make Russian attacks more effective. You're going to have increased Ukrainian casualties, and it's going to undermine President Trump's leverage as he tries to bring Vladimir Putin to the negotiating table in good faith, something I'm not holding my breath for, especially if we deprive Ukraine of the means of self-defense.
Yeah, speaking of leverage, President Trump has used it in his dealings with NATO, Mark. He's getting NATO. According to him, NATO will fund the arming of Ukraine, number one. But number two, Brad, just yesterday, we had this meeting between Trump and European Union officials where he announced that the EU will now be relying on the United States for much more of its oil and gas to the tune of $750 billion, which will decrease European reliance on Russian energy. How big of a game changer was that announcement yesterday with the EU?
I think it's really important for Europe and, frankly, as much of the international community as possible to not be purchasing Russian gas. I mean, that's a big problem right now. We have China purchasing a lot of Russian energy. And that provides revenue to Putin to fuel this largest invasion in Europe since World War II. So we got to make sure Americans and Europeans in particular, are not buying anything from Russia. And we got to use secondary sanctions, in my view, to punish countries like China that are buying Russian oil and helping to fund Putin's war of aggression in Ukraine.
Last question. Any end game in sight to this Russia-Ukraine war. President Trump obviously has given Vladimir Putin a deadline, which is ticking away now. Is there an end game in sight? How could this thing potentially end?
What is certain is if we deprive Ukraine of the means of self-defense, we will get a solution and it'll be a disaster. And this could become President Trump's Kabul or Saigon. And we don't want that. We want to protect American interests there. And we can do it. It's affordable. I mean, if you combine all of the weapons that we've given Ukraine or committed to Ukraine since the beginning of Putin's latest aggression, it's less than 3% of what we spend on the Pentagon. We can afford this and sustain it forever. Putin can't. That's the beginning of understanding. And with this new deal that Trump has negotiated, where Europeans are helping to pay for American weapons to Ukraine, it makes it even more sustainable and even more of a no-brainer that we should help Ukraine defend its home and brutalize the home invader Vladimir Putin so he reconsiders his line of work and doesn't attack our home next.
Brad, great breakdown and well said, folks. Be sure to follow him, FDD.org, on X, across social media. Stakelbeck Tonight, my all-new nightly series on current events through a bold biblical lens. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an upload, and tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. And don't forget to share your thoughts, insights, and comments below. Thanks for watching, and God bless.